All right, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you okay. So welcome back to another CryptoVagabonds live event. So this is a CryptoVagabonds Q&A. And I want to first of all thank everyone for being here. We're very happy that you're here today. You must be following us either on YouTube, Rumble, or on Academy. For those who have never seen me before, my name is Booth. I'm the founder of the CryptoVagabonds. And I have been in the crypto space since 2015. I do not have a bank account. So since I have been in the crypto space for the past decade, I have tried to help people to enter the digital space safely and to increase their wealth and to preserve their wealth for generations to come. I have done that by private coaching, creating courses, and of course, founding the CryptoVagabonds Academy. Now, if you like to become financial sovereign, consider joining our academy. Link for that on the description below. We are here today with a few members here. We have Cora, we have Juche, and myself. Rosalind used to be part of the academy with us and is also part of us on our clubhouse. However, today we're going to be talking about DeepSeek. To me, in my view, this is by far, if not for the top one, the top 4 or 5 lives that I ever broadcast. I think the significance of this is tremendous. I have been doing research about this online, and I see people focus on something which I think is not significant. I think there's a lot of things that we can focus on, which is, in my view, far more significant. So please stay tuned to the end because I'm going to be giving my view of where the focus should be on this whole DeepSeek news. So let me just, without any further ado, see if I can start the presentation and we want to move from there. Let me take this here and send this to here. So we can start this presentation. All right, let's do that now. Let me close this. Just bear with me. Here we go. And this. All right. Let me know if you guys can see my screen so I can start the presentation today.
I can see it.
Okay, so once you can see it, can you still see it? Correct?
I can see it. Yeah.
All right, so as everything we ever produce, and I think this is the one where this disclaimer is going to be really significant. Remember, nothing that we produce in any platform is to be considered financial, tax, or legal advice. All we do is produce content for educational and entertainment purpose only. This crypto Q&A does occur every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and obviously you can interact with us in Clubhouse, YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, X. Clubhouse, we are there now Tuesday to Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time. Today we're going to be covering DeepSeek. Now, remember what I'm going to say to you. I'm not going to be focused on what I think to be just noise. I have done some research, and I'm going to be presenting this from a different perspective than most people out there. So please stay tuned to the end so you can understand what I mean by that. We're going to be following the following roadmap. First, the breakthrough news about DeepSeek. Now, how this will disrupt the industry. What will be the market consequences, the geopolitical implications, and we're going to also be talking about skepticisms and theory and what I believe to be AI's future and the impact that this will have on the globe. I'm not going to be focused so much on the big noise of what's going to happen to NVIDIA, there's going to be a shrink on demand. I think that's just noise. I think there's more geopolitical implications and social implications to this whole thing. And I don't see this as a Sputnik event. I'm going to be describing to you guys how I see this. I see this as a Sputnik event combined with Linux moment and Bitcoin moment. And if you want to find out more why I say those things, continue the presentation to the end. Let's first start with the breakthrough technical advancements. Let's talk about that. Here is the guy who is behind the whole thing on DeepSeek. So it's a Chinese artificial intelligence company founded in 2023 by Liang Wenfeng. Now, I could be butchering his name. I'm not pronouncing correctly, but this is the guy that is behind the company. Now, DeepSeek launched AI products in different versions. That is the R1 and the V3. I'm not going to debate so much about the difference between them. So here's one, R1, and there's V3. V3 is the previous model. R1 is the more sophisticated model. So DeepSeek R1 and V3 are new AI models from China that rival OpenAI's ChatGPT and other leading Western models. Now, why are they surprised with this whole thing? They managed to achieve competitive performance with almost 6 million. Now, some people are saying it's a lie. It was not just 6 million, and it was a fewer than 200 employees. Now, some people are saying, again, this is a lie. The Chinese government is lying. And to me, that's where the focus goes wrong. It doesn't matter how much it took. It doesn't matter how many employees it took. What matters is what this thing can do and how it will change the world moving from now on. That is my view. So OpenAI apparently used $500 million, 450 million, and 770 employees against 6 million and a fewer than 200 employees by DeepSeek. And again, people are saying that we cannot trust China. To me, that is not the significant point. Now, open source availability allows anyone to inspect, modify, and optimize the models. Now, this is the part which to me becomes relevant. We do not know the code for ChatGPT, OpenAI. We do not know the code for Gemini. We do not know the code for any Western company's AI. The code for DeepSeek is open source. And that to me is the most significant thing. It's not how much it costs to develop, but the fact that now it is open source. Now, why is that important? It's because now anyone can audit the code, modify the code, interact with the code, and create their own versions of AI. Now, another thing that happens, it features reasoning. So when you ask a question to ChatGPT, ChatGPT gives you the answer. Not this one. This one explains to you the thought process. It breaks down to you the entire thought process behind solving that problem. And as it goes through the thought process, sometimes it realizes its own mistakes and improves the thought process as it goes with it. So you can actually see how it's working. And that is something that is a feature that to me is changing the game. Instead of you just receiving the response, this model shows you the thought process behind it. And here's the thing, it starts to correct its own rationale, something which wasn't explicit programmed. Here's the thing, AI advancement goes further and faster than we think because they can self-learn and self-correct themselves. This is something unique on the case of DeepSeek. Now, needless to say, it became the #1 download app on App Store. You can see here, it's on the very top, and then ChatGPT. Now, why does this disrupt the AI tech industry? It's not just because of the rationale, it is because it's cost effective. And this to me is the result of sanctions. Look, lower training costs from 100 million to 5 million and reduce GPU requirements from 100,000 to 2,000 makes AI development more accessible. So it is cheaper and is more accessible than OpenAI. The code is open source, it's cheaper, and there's something that they call distillation, which we're going to be talking about that shortly. So before, everyone thought you need the high-end, sophisticated microchips produced by NVIDIA, and then US put sanctions forbidding China from having access to this because the US wants to be ahead of the game. Guess what? They're no longer ahead of the game, and China found a way to circumnavigate and create an AI that is not dependent on those very expensive GPUs from NVIDIA. So here's a few technical improvements. 8-bit processing instead of 32-bit, increasing efficiency with minimal accuracy loss. That's significant. Multi-token reading, processing entire phrases instead of individual words, doubling the speed. a specialized modular activation, activating only the necessary AI components, optimizing resource use. So pretty much instead of using all its bank of data knowledge, it goes laser focus on one specific task. Now, to me, now I want to explain to you why I believe this should be an AI Bitcoin moment. Because the code is open source. The same way that the code of Bitcoin is open source, and after Bitcoin, we had Litecoin, we had Bitcoin Cash, we had Ethereum, we had all these cryptocurrencies that all were born by the fact that the Bitcoin code was open source. We do not know how many versions, how many variations of OpenAI we're going to have now that the computing cost has lowered. I have seen people using a GPU, and yes, it didn't take a few seconds, it didn't take a minute to process the information. It took close to 5 minutes. But the thing is, someone could do that on their own home, disconnected from the internet. So that to me is the big Bitcoin moment. The fact that you can run this on your house on a decentralized manner and offline. ChatGPT can only run online. This thing can run offline. I have seen videos of people downloading this and running on their computer, which means, in my view now, people who are mining Bitcoin Classic, people who are mining cryptocurrencies that require GPU, they may try to think, wait a minute, I'm not making as much money mining this cryptocurrency. What if I just disconnect myself from online, download this version of OpenAI, get a few friends together, modify the code, and get this thing to create a group on X with 3,000 different users, all messaging and pumping my coin, which I have mine and the price hasn't performed well. Human beings are not going to be able to know if they're interacting with humans or they're going to be interacting with bots. The price may go up, the guys may sell it, and that's it. So there's no limit on what humans are going to be able to do with the open source AI that can be run offline, which means away from any eyes of government, regulators, or anyone oversights. That's my view. Now, there is a 671B model. The 671 model, the one that pretty much beats ChatGPT, it still requires massive GPU to compute, meaning it's not fully customer friendly, but it is a beginning. Now, how does the financial market will respond and what are the consequences? So there's a dive or a correction on NVIDIA stock. Here's the thing. This dive is, in my view, attributed to two things. One is they thought that NVIDIA was the main manufacturer of microchips that are extremely necessary for AI. And now because you can do that on GPUs, the demand is going to go down. I don't think the demand is going to go down. I think the fact that you run something more efficient will only increase the demand. We see this with electricity. The fact that the cost of energy goes down, it means we find more things to do with electricity. The fact that automobile prices went down, we find more things to do with our automobiles. The fact that digital camera made the cost of photography go down, we have more photography than ever. So I don't think this is realistic if it is from the perspective of no demand for the microchips. Now, if this is going down because they thought the US had a leading, it was ahead on the technological advancements, and now we do not know what China has up their sleeve, then this is a realistic dive and may continue. Now, if it is just because someone thinks the demand is going to shrink, I think that's a mistake. I think the biggest picture is not to look at NVIDIA, but how realistic is the narrative that the US is ahead of the curve on this race? So instead of asking, is NVIDIA another bubble? Investors, in my view, are now questioning whether AI valuations were inflated, leading to comparisons with the past financial bubbles. Once again, if it is based on the shrinking demand, maybe it's a wrong approach. If it is because maybe the US is not ahead and we need to partner with China, find out what else is going to happen in China, then this is realistic, at least in my view. So a lot of people are comparing this with Cisco on the early 2000s, a company that crashed, and even though it has gone up, is not yet at the top of the bubble of the year 2000. Now, we already talked about the demand. The potential impact on AI hardware demand as reduced computing requirements could lower sales for high-end chips. That is a theory. I don't fully agree with it. I think we're gonna find out that the fact that we have something more efficient, we're gonna use now this thing which is much more efficient, and we're gonna use that with the most efficient microchips. Now, geopolitical implications. I remember saying this as soon as Nancy Pelosi first went to Taiwan, that was a mistake. It will be escalating the conflict and animosity between China and the US. And that's exactly what had happened. And they increased the sanctions in China. The US is posing China as their enemy, but China is now catching up with a lot of things. I think this was a mistake. And I do like the fact that Donald Trump is already refusing to help Taiwan in a few fronts, showing that there's possibly a chance of better partnership between the US and China. In my view, this whole thing was caused because of sanctions. Remember, the US imposed sanctions to block China from accessing AI chips, and they were trying to limit the access of advancements. But here's the thing people need to learn. China is a very stubborn country. And this is not the first time that this happened. It happened in the past. They tried to cut China or Chinese chips from the GPS system. China created a better GPS system. They tried to cut China from advanced microchips and AI. China found a way to do it. So despite all these restrictions, China still acquired advanced microchips. We saw once a video where they opened a Huawei telephone and they found the microchip inside the phone. So sanctions do not work. I have made this video about sanctions at the time and explain how NVIDIA's stock went up, in my view, because companies were being created to buy NVIDIA microchips to sell specific to China. And I show the receipts on this video. So let's look at this. This was in June 2024.
Why am I mentioning Hyperscale Nexus as the partnership with NVIDIA? Is because it's yet another company that is buying a lot of microchips from NVIDIA who has no background on AI. Hyperscale Nexus is also partnering themselves with a company called Fusion. Now, even though the name of the company is an English name, guess what? The company is a Chinese company, and they are the actual buyers of NVIDIA's microchips. And as you already may know, the US has imposed heavy sanctions on microchips to China, which means NVIDIA are not allowed to sell microchips to China. So if they actually carry on this deal, that would mean NVIDIA's microchips are being sold to China. So it seems like those people create those companies in order to get those microchips into China, which is evading sanctions and another criminal activity.
And further in this video, I actually show a graph where when the sanctions of the US came, you see a slight going up on NVIDIA price, and then you see a tremendous going up. And all that price went up because they were starting to receive billion-dollar orders. Now, I don't care who you are. If you are a company that have no experience with AI, you cannot place $1 billion order to NVIDIA's microchip. This to me was companies created to buy those microchips, sent to China, evading sanctions. Now, here's another thing which is very alarming. This guy, Eric Schmidt, he's a former Google CEO, and this is what he said about AI technology and China's position. This was May 2024.
In the case of artificial intelligence, we are well ahead, 2 or 3 years probably of China, which in my world is an eternity.
So he said that they were an eternity ahead of China in terms of AI. And guess what? November last year, he changed his mind. December last year, there were talks about DeepSeek. And on the inauguration, on the morning of the inauguration of Donald Trump, DeepSeek got launched to the world. So now we already know that China has developed competitive AI model despite all of these barriers. proving once again that sanctions fail to stop its AI progress. Now, one thing about China, they do it and then they show it to the world. And if they made DeepSeek available, a code which is superior to ChatGPT by some metrics, I just wonder what they still have up their sleeve. Not to mention robots, which I'm going to get into this a little bit further. So here we have it, another footage of Donald Trump talking about DeepSeek.
The release of DeepSeek AI from a Chinese company should be a wake-up call for our industries that we need to be laser focused on competing to win, because we have the greatest scientists in the world.
Now, here I want to say something about the US. I keep saying you do not want to be arrogant. Arrogance is the destroyer of all wealth. But here's what happened. Let's just be devil's advocate. Let's say they managed to pull this off with $6 million. That means a company, an entire company could run with less than a salary of one of the board members of the OpenAI companies or Meta or Google. Think about this. An entire company could run with less than a salary of some of the board members of those technological companies in the US. Undisputably, China, once again, has a lower cost in order to deliver greater results. The reason why a lot of things are manufactured in China is because China has been able to produce things at a fraction of the cost of the labor cost in America. And it seems like when it comes to technology, that is also true. Maybe they're lying, but I doubt that anyone on that company has a salary that is even close to the salaries of the large tech companies in the US. So they definitely have, maybe not by the magnitude which they are making public, but they are able to do things for cheaper in China, which to me says that this may shift things geopolitically speaking. High-tech companies are going to have to leave the US, and China is going to be taking the leadership on that front. Now, let's talk about skepticisms and theories. Like I just mentioned to you guys, concerns that China past tech is exaggerated. Yes, like I just mentioned, maybe it is not 97 times cheaper, it's not 10 times cheaper, it's not 33 times cheaper. However, it is cheaper. And one thing still remains true. Chinese train system, maglev, is still better than any train in the US or Canada. More to the US, I think Canada still has a better train system than the US. So it is exaggerated, yes. But it's totally a lie? I'm not sure. So now my other concern is the code is now open, okay? The code for this AI is totally open. The training process remains undisclosed. And the cost of training, we still do not know. It is difficult to verify. But that to me is not as relevant. What is relevant is that you can download the code, you can disconnect yourself from the internet, and you can use a couple of GPUs that you maybe using to mine crypto and making no income. And now you can just operate this whole thing offline and figure a way to train this thing to become really good at doing what you particularly want this thing to do. This to me is the most significant part. We now will have no idea what people, what teenagers are going to be doing on their basement with this technology. I can totally see some kids who have a few computers on their basements creating tasks that they believe are going to make them rich or is going to disrupt the world. That's my view. So now there's of course some conspiracy theories that DeepSeek hedge fund backers are worth $7 billion, and they may have short NVIDIA stock before the AI launch, profiting from the crash. That's also a theory that those guys are like, wait a minute, before we launch this, Xi Jinping say, let's just short NVIDIA stock because we know it's going to be a hit, and let's make sure that we cash and get some money from that. That is also a possibility. Is there evidence of that? Not yet. However, it is also a possibility. Now, one person that I think is going to be very happy in the US with this is Elon Musk. Okay, so he honestly believes that DeepSeek secretly trained its AI with far more resources than publicly stated. And again, what is relevant is not how did they make it. What is relevant to me is that the genie is outside the bottle. It is available to anyone and everyone who wants to buy some GPUs and run this thing from their basement offline. That's my view. And this leads me to the future of AI. I think, what should the US do? I think while DeepSeek improves efficiency, US companies can integrate this optimization into their own AI models. I have seen a post from Meta pretty much admitting that they are copying everything they can from DeepSeek, which I find interesting because they normally accuse the Chinese from copying everything, but China managed to shift the skills. Admittedly, it is their own line. Meta has said that they are copying everything they can copy from DeepSeek to improve their models. So now, another thing that we do know is that history shows us that greater efficiency will not reduce the demand of GPUs and microchips. It will only increase. We can see here, it doesn't matter how much we lower the efficiency of our fridges, we still continue to have an increased demand for electricity because now that this thing became cheaper, we want to find what else can we do with this, not the other way around. But once again, if the tanking of the stock is not because they believe there's going to be a decrease on demand, but maybe because they now start to see that the US is not the leading country and it doesn't have the leading companies on this technology, then something is different. So OpenAI is upcoming with the launches of GPT-5. OpenAI is upcoming GPT 4.5, and 5 may quickly reassert the US dominance. So ChatGPT, OpenAI, the company is already trying to adapt and do something that's going to be ahead. Once again, open source code will be copied by these companies. They're going to use this on their very massive computational power with very sophisticated microchips, and they also are going to benefit from this. This is what's going to continue to happen. The code is open source. Anyone from their basement and any large companies will use it. And this, in my view, will only accelerate the advancement of AI. The same way that Bitcoin advanced cryptocurrencies by being open source, this code being open source will only further the advancement of major companies and people on their basements. Now, one thing that I think also is going to happen is not just this will forever reshape the AI industry, and I don't think it's going to be only a temporary disruption. And one thing I said this morning, and I'm going to repeat to you guys, the genie is outside the bottle. There's no way for us to put this thing back in. We have now democratized power of mass manipulation. And I want to take here for you to focus. The very definition of power is the ability to get someone else who is not you to do what you want them to do. I'll repeat that. The very definition of power is the ability to get someone else to do something that you want them to do. Now, with the genie outside the bottle and open source and the ability of someone to run this from their basement, there'll be no shortage of people who are going to be very disciplined in creating ways and bots pretending to be humans, since most of our interactions right now is on a 2D screen. We will not be able to tell if you're interacting with one human being, thousands of humans that has been agents of AI created by someone else. People are going to find ways to get masses to do what they want those masses to do. We have now democratized power that we're on the hands of the large tech, and there's no telling what the world would look like 3, 4, or 5 years from now because we have democratized this power. That's my view, and to me, that should be the focus. What would the world look like? How can we adapt to this What mechanisms have you put in place to protect ourselves not to be affected by this? How are we going to raise our kids? How are we going to make sure that we use this to our benefit instead of letting these use us? Because I know a lot of people who do not use their phones, but their phones use them. I think there's a documentary on Netflix, which is the social media dilemma. And I think watching that and reflecting on the fact that AI code is open source, available to everyone, and can operate offline should at least raise a question mark on how we move forward from here as human beings. And here's my joke to you. When I see things like this, I really admire the Amish. Maybe the Amish were right. So conclusion, this to me is a Bitcoin moment, a Sputnik moment, and a Linux moment all put together. If Bitcoin will change the world of finance, this DeepSeek, an open code for AI, will change power forever. It will change the way we interact with one another forever. And we will change the way we interact with the 2D forever. The world will not be the same once that the genie has been outside the bottle. There's no telling what's going to happen. The reason why people say this is a Sputnik moment is because when the US was fighting to be ahead of the space race, there was a satellite from Russia that just went over their heads and they did not know. And that's why Mark Anderson say this is Sputnik moment. I say it is a combination of the three: Bitcoin, Sputnik, and Linux. There's no telling what's going to happen in the world now that AI code is open source to anyone and everyone. So let's give a little recap. We spoke about the breakthrough, disrupting the industry, market consequences, a little bit on geopolitical implications, skepticism theories and conspiracy theories, and what I believe is going to be the future of AI. It will change the way we interact with one another forever. The world will not be the same. The genie is outside the bottle. Now, if you want to find out more about this and you want to go in depth into this situation and be in more control of your money, consider joining the CryptoVagabonds Academy. Link for that on the description below. And with this, I will pause the presentation and have a conversation with you about DeepSeek or whatever other questions you may have. I think I killed the event. No questions. Joche, Ross, Georgie, Raymond.
Yeah, I'm here. It was very good presentation. I think there's a couple things I wanted to weigh in. The same stuff as Clubhouse, which is I know people can run it locally, but there's still the aspect of a lot of people won't, which is fine, and that it's cheap to run. And I think part of that is based on a bigger thing, which is the price of electricity. And China just keeps hitting that hard. And people will say, well, that's because they're burning coal, that's because this and that. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. That's the choice of that country to do so. And they have cheap electricity prices, so cheapest in the world, I believe. So
Not to
that's going to
mention nuclear plants, and they're also building more nuclear plants while like Europe were going on the other direction.
Yeah. So there's that. There's that happening. Plus, of course, they're rolling out a lot of solar and wind and doing a lot of things on that front. So that's just going to help them, bring down costs and get their own, independence. Plus the Russian gas lines, which aren't going to end anytime soon. Those are long-term, multi-decade contracts. So there's that has the dominance, and where that leads to is even if DeepSeek is on par with its competitors, it's still going to be able to undercut it to a large degree. And the other thing, going back to the Chinese EVs, is the difference is with Chinese EVs, these countries like US and Europe are putting tariffs on these things. I don't see that they can tariff AI. I don't see how they can tariff, because the worst that they can do is block it, like block access to it by like IP address or domain and this and that. And we know how well that's worked for torrents and other stuff. And as you mentioned, you can run it offline, worst scenario. So those things will pop up, worst case. And of course, we've got the whole VPN situation. So it'll be a reverse VPN situation where right now everyone that visits China uses a VPN to access Facebook and Google and all these things. It's going to be a reverse in terms of people would then, if there was a block, people would use a VPN to access China. They'd want to be there or in some other country that would allow them. Uh, Probably a BRICS country you would VPN to, and then you would be able to access the DeepSeek if you're
Yeah.
not self-hosting it.
Another thing that I think is important, so just for people to understand what Jyoti is talking about, is like GPUs run on electricity. When we try to mine BTC, we're looking for the cheapest electricity available. That's why most of the mining for BTC was occurring in China, because they had the cheapest electricity. Now, besides cheap electricity, here's the thing that I didn't mention in the presentation, which I think is very significant. What ChatGPT charges you $44 or $50 per month, they are charging you $1 per month. So, I mean, so are you telling me that I can run this for 2 years for the same price as 1 month on ChatGPT? I mean, you do the math. People are going to be using. They already stop or reduce the speed of adoption by only making the app available for phones on Asia or in China. But that is also true for many other applications. Clubhouse, ChatGPT did the same thing as they try to optimize things. I would say between now and June, if this thing is available to the entire West, I mean, who is going to pay like 97% more? Like, if you can pay $1 per month, why are you going to pay $45 or $50 per month? Now, which to me suggests that whenever they have the Pro version, which ChatGPT now is $200, if you apply the same math, you may have the Pro version for less than $10. So they
Yeah,
will lead the world. Go ahead, Juche.
yeah, they're gonna put extreme price pressure on everything else. That's 100% sure. And the other thing is that I've been following is this whole NVIDIA thing, in terms of what China's going to do. China's doing a few things. One of them is that they're also getting around sanctions by renting GPU power from the NVIDIA H100s through different data centers, and they're paying in crypto. So there's no way that that you can go like block that, right? So U.S. sanctions don't work in that regard as well. So absolute worst case scenario, China and DeepSeek or whoever can still outsource the computational power and just run it in a data center, right? Um, I have some articles, I mean, I could share on screen, but the essence is there's this Huawei is making this competitor to NVIDIA's H100, which is the Huawei Ascend 910C is the model, and they expect it to be on par with the H100. But even if it's not, even if it's 75%, 80%, China has so much cheap electricity that even if they have to use 25 or 50% more chips, it's still going to be a lot cheaper and still going to process. So, yeah, I wouldn't count them out on that as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
No, what I want to say is I still think that what we should be talking about is we need to understand that what the high-tech companies did for the US, right? The reason why US is ahead of Europe right now is because Europe focus on hardware companies. They want to build the best automobiles. They want to create a lot of hardware. The US focus on software. Yes, the US export inflation, but another thing that the US has exported to the world is a lot of soft power. The main movies and a lot of software, Google, Meta, Amazon, all those companies, Apple, those are the high-tech companies that has boosted the American economy and kept the US as the leading economy on the planet. China has already surpassed the US in electrical automobiles and vehicles. The CEO of Ford went to an automobile event in China, and he was like, "We are behind them already." Now the West is coming with terms like, "Wow, maybe we're ahead of them on AI, which is the main promising technology for the future." And the question geopolitically is, do you still want to be playing this as an arms race between US and China, or you want to join yourself with China and change the geopolitical relationships? Because it seems like China is pretty much giving the heads up to the US. You can't win this battle. And that's one of the moments where I think arrogance may be the America's worst enemy. Does it make sense, Juche?
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, there's so many aspects to it. I mean, I think the West is coming at it at a certain, like they're making certain points, but I think they're not quite relevant to most of, the use cases. Meaning, one of them is like the censorship model, right? Where they say, oh, you can't look up, Tiananmen Square on DeepSeek and stuff like that. And I think that's factual one way or another. Like there's proof that you can't, right? But the vast majority of people that are using ChatGPT don't really care about history, I would say, at least not in that regard. What they care about is, can I do a website? Can I do, search engine optimization? Can I do different tasks, ask different questions? Health related, what have you, and get, a decent answer, a useful, reliable answer. And that's the main thing. And if I can get it for cheaper as well, that's really a bonus. That's the main thing. So I think that's what people are after, and they're not going to care if it comes from China, Russia, US, or any other country. It's just a matter of just accessing it. So
Yeah,
I
it's like
think,
TikTok, right? It's like
yeah.
TikTok. People don't care if it's Chinese or not. It does what I wanted to do. But continue, Juche. I wonder if
Yeah,
there's any
yeah.
question. Well,
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead. If there's any questions.
I'm not sure if there's any questions. Anyone can just put them on the chat or unmute yourself and ask the questions. If not, I wanna see the articles that Juche may have there, and wanna add more value to this conversation. So
Yeah, I was trying to find, I think it's from Forbes, the guy on Inside China. He had this chart. I don't know if it was Forbes or Wall Street Journal. They did a really horrible chart, but it was basically like what industries and what areas is China behind on, right? And really the only one uh, that they're significantly behind on right now is the airlines, the commercial airlines, right? So, and if you guys look up COMAC, COMAC, I mean, China's, has been on the case for the last 10 years on that. And I was mentioning in Clubhouse earlier today, the other thing that China was behind on in the mid 90s was the satellite navigation, right? And they didn't really care until uh, one of their ships when was contacted by the U.S. in, I forget which canal, the Suez or the Red Sea or something there, and the U.S. thought they had chemical weapons on the ship, and so they disabled the GPS navigation, and the ship went into the side of the bank or whatever of the river or the Gulf, what have you, and it had damage. And the Chinese requested $20 million in compensation, And by the way, the US stopped and searched the boat, and there were no chemical weapons or anything like that. So the Chinese were severely embarrassed and humiliated by that. And so then that started the Chinese version of GPS, which is BDS, as in uh, Bob dead system there, BDS. And here we are late. Now we are 20, 30 years later. They have BDS rolled out. It's more accurate. It's more modern. It has two-way messaging, so it's an improvement on the GPS system. So this is what the Chinese do, whether we like it or not. They're going to grind ahead. So they've done that on the GPS to their own GPS with BDS. They've done it on now AI, and in the next 10 years or so, there's going to be the same thing on the commercial aircraft against Boeing and Airbus. So go ahead, Cora. You have your hand raised.
Yeah, what I wanted to ask is not about exactly what you're mentioning. It's about something Buff was saying in the presentation. Good presentation, by the way. There is a part where you say that now is everything is decentralized, or anybody can use AI in their houses, like the same thing people use with the code of Bitcoin. Do you so basically ChatGPT is how can I say, like they see and they monitor everything that you do. So can someone use DeepSeek in their houses with their own stuff and nobody is gonna have access to that because you can do it offline? But I mean, if still the code is the same, is there any way they can track whatever you're doing, or that would be kind of my question. Like, could you expand on that difference there between ChatGPT and DeepSeek?
Okay, I can take that. So what happens is this, and again, the US is not a good representation of free market, right? They impose sanctions in many countries. They impose a lot of things. But this whole idea that you have to be online to use any software today, right? And let's just face it, a lot of softwares are created by the US, and they create a model where instead of because before, for instance, you could buy a software such as Adobe, and you could create graphs on your computer. You didn't have to be online. You didn't have to be connected. And Adobe would have no ways to find out what designs and what you're creating, right? And at one point, we came with a SketchUp, which I think was from Google. And SketchUp, you have to be online in order to create a lot of things. And then they learn what you create and they copy your models. What happened now with DeepSeek is, for instance, you can download or have access to something called LM Studios. And LM Studios allows you to run a lot of software offline. So I can download, for instance, DeepSeek. And yes, it's not going to be as fast and as efficient as if I'm running online with some computational power from some massive cloud. However, I still can run offline. And what I can do now is I can take this version of the software and I can alter the code in a way that suits me. And here's the thing, I may not have to be that great programmer because guess what? DeepSeek can also write computer language, right? So I can now spend all the time I want and tailor this AI to become really good at one specific task, right? That I think is very important. And no one's going to know what am I doing with that AI? What am I training that AI to do? And I can make the code again that I modify, close, doesn't have to be open, and I can just launch that online to add tremendous value or to attack something. So we now have democratized that ability to have AI. What I think is going to be happening in the future, which again, I haven't seen anyone talking about it, is we're going to also democratize not the software, but the hardware. What I mean by that, very few people are talking about the fact that China has over 1 million robots. It's not just 1 million robots, it's 1 million human-like robots. Robots that look like humans. They build about 1 million of those. Now, all those robots are connected to one brain, and they perform different tasks. They can be working in the factories, but they can also go to war. Now, there are also those humanoid robots that are being programmed to repair themselves and to build more robots. So the way that China managed to build 1 million robots is by creating a humanoid robots to operate a factory where they build more humanoid robots. And now they can just, like, as they build more robots, they can manufacture more of themselves. This today is still something that is belongs to the Chinese as a country, but it's going to be a matter of time before that also becomes democratized, where the ability to create robots will be there, democratized to other human beings as well. I think the next step of this AI would not be software, but hardware. How are we going to train different robots to be specialized in different things? Does it make sense, Cora? Did I answer you?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Do you hear me well?
Yes, I hear very well. So I
Okay.
think the cost of hardware AI is gonna drop as well. I think that's the next step. If I was into this industry, I'll be looking for what is the next step for artificial intelligence hardware, because the software, the genie is outside the bottle already.
And so I'm not sure if you mentioned, because it's been sometimes breaking up a little bit on my end because of my connection. But so you think that China, if they release this to the public, they have something better?
Definitely, definitely, definitely. China, look, in order to understand China, what everyone in the West should do is once a year, this is what I do, once a year, read The Art of War. Just once a year. It's a very small book, it's a very tiny book. Just read The Art of War. This is the bedrock, one of the rocks that makes the foundation of the Chinese culture. If you do not understand Sun Tzu, The Art of War, you cannot understand Chinese. Like, just read that once a year, over and over again, and slowly you're going to start to figure out that you are dealing with a different opponent. When it comes to competition and war, the West is far behind. They have great technology, but they're not the best at war. It takes like, and here's the thing, The Art of War is a book that you have to read at school in China. It's part of the school curriculum in China, The Art of War. If China reveal DeepSeek, they have something better. If they reveal 1 million robots, expect them to have 10. They do it, and then they show a little bit of what they did. They never put all their cards on the table. They always have cards up their sleeve. That's the way of the Chinese.
And what about um doing this as a way or as a tool to make the world believe that they are doing something greater, instead of, I mean, that could also be some, like, maybe they don't have nothing, they don't have anything, but they don't want people to think that, they don't want their enemies to think that they don't have access to stuff, so we gotta make something to scare them or something like that. Is that possible?
It is very improbable, and I'm going to explain to you why. When was DeepSeek released?
Couple days ago.
On the inauguration of Donald Trump.
Mm.
At the same time that there was the inauguration of Donald Trump, China was releasing DeepSeek.
Okay.
Nah. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Is a provocation is
It's a direct message. It's a direct message. Because Donald Trump is the one that started alarm about the situation with China and possible sanctions. And then Biden made the mistake of sending Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan. And like, okay, this is the guy that imposed sanction on us on this whole thing. He's the one who started. He's now taking power. Let's wait. And let's just release that on the same time that is like that's why I'm like,
but I mean, you say it's a direct message, but I can feel like a kind of provocation or something, but what would be the direct message exactly?
the message is this. Look, the difference between the West and Chinese remembers. They know their history, they know their past, they remember. They really remember. So they remember that it was Donald Trump who initiated the sanctions and like put a concern about microchips and China and the technological development in China. Donald Trump started that. The other thing is now the guy's back in power. Let's show to him what that did. Let's show to him how efficient was his ideas of sanctioning us. Let's show to him how far behind we are because of his actions. That's the message. You shot me. You thought I was dead. Now is the Hulk in front of you. What you gonna do? You understand?
Yeah,
Mm.
more like just something they're working on, and then it's like, okay, now it's time to. This is the perfect time for us to release something, whatever it
Yes.
is, to show the world what we're capable of, and more. Okay.
Yeah.
Miraculously, I found the slide that I was looking for.
Show that, Judge.
Oh my God. Okay. Let me see here. I had to go through a few videos. Let's see. Where is it?
Ooh, we also got Donald Trump is in trouble. So
What
we
do you
want to
mean
talk
it's
about
in
that now,
trouble?
Georgie, because there was no change on interest rates. So
Oh shit. I have it behind me here.
no change. Thank you, Georgie. Yeah.
Oh,
I think it depends what they're gonna say in the press conference. It's not just the rates.
Yeah.
If Powell is dovish, it's gonna be good for the markets.
Yeah. I mean, it's good
Because
for the US dollar, but it's not good for Trump. Trump wants the interest rates to go down. And he's really pushing that, asking Jean Paul to do that. But okay, go show the graph there.
do you see my screen now?
Yes, we do see your screen.
Yeah, so this is the Inside China Business channel that I follow.
Yeah.
I'm like addicted. This is like for me, this is better than porn. Like this is really good. So he has stuff like this. I highly recommend. Oh, sorry. Okay, I stopped my video. Um, so let me just move this out of the way here. So on the right side here, you don't need to hear the audio necessarily, but this is the chart that he sourced from okay, Bloomberg Intelligence. He doesn't like this style of chart, and neither do I, but anyways, it is what it is. So China's achieving growth cloud in key made in China 2025 industries. China's achieved a global leadership position in 5 key technologies. So unmanned aerial vehicles, so the DJI drones and such, solar panels, of course, and graphene, and then yeah, I'm going from starting from right to left here, counterclockwise. So, and then high speed rail, right? Uh, so they're good on. I'm just trying to understand. So this is
Electrical automobiles.
1 second. Just from the top at 12 o'clock, you see 2030, 2024, and 2015. So it shows where they were behind, where they're competitive, and where they're expected to come in 2030. So just 5 years from now. So the yellow is their competitive, and the green, it's not quite green, whatever you want to call that color, is global leader. So as we were just showing, unmanned, the DJI drones, they're a global leader since 2015. So it goes 2015, 2024, 2030, right? So you can see they're already there on 5 key technologies. Drugs, drugs, pharmaceuticals, they are competitive. Large tractors, they were behind in 2015. They're now competitive. Machine tools, they were behind, now competitive. Everything is competitive. The only thing that they're behind on right now is the last one, which, as I was mentioning, is commercial aircraft, which is in progress right now with the COMAC. Semiconductors, competitive, right? Artificial intelligence is right there. So that was the third one. They were behind in 2015, according to this Bloomberg Intelligence. 2020, they're 2024 competitive, and 2030 they're expected to, of course, be competitive. And I think this
They're
might even
leading
change.
now. They're already
Yeah,
leading now.
exactly. So this dot may change color, and robots is the next one. Of course, that combines with artificial intelligence in many things, right? And so you're going to see more and more um, dots turn to this, whatever you want to call this color, in between
Right.
blue and green, but you get the point.
But one thing which is not there, which they're also leading, is quantum computing, right? I don't see that there. They're not behind. They're leading, at least on the sensor portion of the quantum computers. They're ahead of the West. So I think that there's a few other things which are not there, and I'll just add quantum computers.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So that's this one. I don't know if there's anything. I think he goes back to it later in the video, but
yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that is a very good one.
and then he goes on as far as the demand for new aircraft. This is more about aircraft kind of thing. Um, on this video for Boeing and Airbus, they're struggling and they have fake parts and stuff like that. As far as the other stuff on DeepSeek, I was looking up was I was showing you guys this Ascend 910B, 910C. That's their version of like compete with the H100 from NVIDIA, which is the commercial GPU that OpenAI and others are using. And according to reports, anonymous sources, like a lot of these are already like looking to obtain these chips, such as, TikTok, China Mobile, Baidu, their search engine, um,
And
ByteDance.
ByteDance, I think, is the company behind TikTok. I think most people may not know.
Yes.
If you don't know ByteDance, ByteDance is a company behind TikTok. So
Yeah. Huawei is said to have already received at least 70,000 orders for the 910C worth roughly $2 billion. So the sanctions have caused delays, but I think they're gonna work around that, just like they did for their Huawei latest phone. So that's this one from the Register. There was another one from CNBC. Huawei reportedly set to release new AI chips. That's dated, August of last year, and they're looking at releasing it this quarter. And then I was looking up. DeepSeek's AI compute portfolio includes the Huawei's Ascend AI chips. So supposedly it is using it in some of their models. I'm just, yeah, it was, yeah, the DeepSeek R1 is running inference on the Ascend 910C chips, adding a new twist to the fiasco. So they are, of course, using that. I don't know
wow.
I don't know what the inference thing is, but they are partially, so they're using the older H800, and they're running some of the computationals on the Ascend, the 910C. Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's more. So it's the Ascend 910C is said to be a direct rival with the H100. So that's also That also should be or could be a reason for NVIDIA stock to go down. Like like they're gonna be coming out this year with at least some of the production. At least they're saying this first quarter. So,
Wow.
and then this article goes on to say it is claimed that DeepSeek has access to more than 50,000 of NVIDIA's H100s, which implies that the firm did require resources similar to their counterpart AI models. So,
Yeah, but to me, like I said, to me, the fact that you can run this from your home offline and create whatever AI tool you want, this is like incredible. Anyway, we need to be also concerned of time, Joshua. We are just
sure.
10
I'll
minutes
stop
over.
sharing.
We're
Yeah, I'll
just 10
stop
minutes
sharing.
over the hour. No, that's okay. I wonder if anyone besides Cora has any questions. I think Georgi just
Just one
stopped.
question.
Go ahead, Georgi.
One fast one.
Go for it.
What do you guys think? Is this bullish for the market?
To me, cheaper cost of any productive tool is good for the market, right? I think we're going to see more and more advanced on things. We're going to see more coding. I definitely going to be using DeepSeek, and I was already talking to Juche about the possibility of trying to run this offline. So I can think about a few tools that I would like to create myself. With this, the fact that it's now democratized is bullish. The same way that Bitcoin democratization of money was bullish, the democratization of power to me is very bullish. So I think governments are becoming obsolete. They're not going to be able to regulate this on time. You cannot create regulation fast enough on this. The technological world is going to move faster than what governments can move. And I think it's going to be more and more private sector and much less government. There's no wonder that as a private company managed to outperform NASA. And I think we're going to be seeing more and more of that, Georgie. It's very bullish for me. Again, not financial advice. But I also think I need to jump on a call with Georgie now, and I need to end this event. Appreciate you guys for being here. If you did like the content, please consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video. And if you want to find out more how to enter the crypto space safely, consider joining the Academy. Link for that on the description below. And if you want to have a call on how to enter the crypto space safely and be able to pass your inheritance to your spring, book a call with me. Link for that on the description below. So this is it for now. Like, subscribe, and let us know what else you want to talk about for the next lives. If you have any suggestions, subjects that you want us to cover, let us know. This is it, and I'm stepping out now. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Elizabeth.